Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this potentially very large winter storm that could be brewing into this upcoming week. Now, the upcoming few days for, the next few days of travel, if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, it will be very nice across the country. We will see the very cold temperatures that we've been seeing across really the majority of the country start to ease and warm up into more seasonable temperatures. There won't be any heat waves, but the fact that, we're going to be going from 20 degrees below average in some areas to 5 to 10 degrees above average, that's already a pretty big jump. So that's going to be very nice. So the first story is just a temperature rebound. And obviously the second one is mainly that's potential for a very large system that could be occurring across the eastern United States. Now, again, unfortunately, the models are still in relatively low agreement with this system, especially given the fact that it is really not that far out. However, we are seeing day by day more increased confidence from the models, and I do have a set, I think, of models that have a better handle than others, so I'll be showing you those. So first off, let's just start off by showing you the GFS. Now, this is a model that really hasn't done that good of a job with the system. It's been less consistent than opposed to its counterpart, the European model. It's been relatively all over the place, but within the last few model runs, the last day or so, it's started to trend more and more towards what the European model is showing, while the European model has stayed consistent. So that gives us pretty valuable insight into the fact that, well, most likely the European model has the better handle of this, and especially, since it's been consistent, and your trend, or a trend is your friend, is often said in the weather community. So the GFS has been trending right towards that European model, so that's usually a pretty good indicator as well. So as I play this forward, notice that, again, a lot of this cold air does ease up as we have a series of high pressure that pump in some warm southwesterly winds, with the advection that goes on, and that will obviously bring warm temperatures and also quite a bit of moisture. Notice there's a lot of moisture towards the south here with that Gulf system that's going to probably continue to bring some showery weather into Florida. But more importantly, what we have to notice very calm weather, right? So the few days leading up to Thanksgiving, Wednesday, I think, is the most travel day. It's going to be gorgeous. It really couldn't be more perfect for travel. Notice Florida, anywhere from Florida to the northeast, maybe just the northwest, getting impacted by some showers and snow. Nothing even significant in terms of that. But this is what we're looking for. And notice that as it tracks through the day, on Wednesday and into Thursday, this thing starts interacting with moisture that is brought up from the Gulf of Mexico and the warm waters from the south here with these high pressures. And what this does is, well, again, this is where a lot of disagreements happens with the models, because this system has a lot of things to go through and a lot of individual, pieces where the links could kind of get messed up, and the models have many areas to disagree on. So typically, when we see a giant storm moving from the Pacific and into the western United States, there's a lot more agreement with that because, well, the system's there, it's going to be moving in. It's just, the track and strength of it. In this case, you can see there is nothing. There's literally it's dependent on the phasing of this piece right here with this moisture from the south. And again, if it's further towards the north-south, the placement is off. This thing may never form. Now, the next thing with this is what does it do across the eastern United States? You can see that the most latest GFS model run does develop a sizable storm, if you will, across a good portion of the southeastern United States into Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and on Saturday. So still a busy time period for travel, but thankfully it's not occurring on Wednesday or Thursday, and it's also mainly a rainstorm, so could be worse. But you can see the GFS, what it does is that it doesn't necessarily develop this into a big beast across the northeast coast with this most latest model run. And you can see it still produces a lot of rain, so that definitely will still have impacts, but it's not so much a winter storm. Now, I have reason to believe that this model is not really doing the best compared to the other models, and I'll show you why. So again, and by the way, what's interesting is, I just want to quickly say this at the beginning of the video, is that there's going to be most likely a second system moving in towards the north and west, or just the western United States, around a week from today. And this thing could be potentially bringing a massive storm across the Midwest early next week. Well, again, this is very far out at this point. But what's interesting is that as far out as it is, they're on the 220-hour timeline, more models are consistently agreeing on this system as opposed to this first one, which is less further out, because of just the orientation and kind of the phasing and everything that goes into play with this system. So many moving pieces. So you could see that that's what the GFS shows now, but just a few hours ago, with its most recent model run at noon, this is what it showed. So again, showed that moisture from the south being dragged up from that little disturbance. You could see that that little trough in that jet stream. So it's a vortex max. This is where winds are strongest and most, I guess, favorable for a storm development. And notice that this is exactly what happens. It starts off with very heavy rain across the southeast, affecting airports like Atlanta, which is the busiest airport in the U.S., I believe. At least it was. If it's not, then it's probably still among, at least the top three. So a lot of rain, thankfully not snow, but you could see maybe some snow across the Appalachians and whatnot. And as it blows up into the northeast, extremely strong winds, makes for hard aviation travel. Very heavy rain moves into the northeast, and of course we see an explosion of snow as this lifts into big Canadian cities like Quebec, Montreal, and whatnot. And you can see that that does produce a lot of snow into Maine, New Hampshire as well. So that is the GFS model run from noon. And yesterday, if you were to take a look at the model runs from the GFS that I was showing you guys, it was a completely different story. No system. So you can see the GFS has been more changeable, while the European has been more of a stable model that's been consistently showing the system. So again, there's that cold air that we're kind of getting rid of. There's that warm air. Again, very nice pattern these next few days. Very few things going on. Maybe a few disturbances again across the north in terms of snow, and of course across Florida and the deep south here, maybe some showers and a cloud cover from that. But the big eyes are on this little guy right here and what its precise track is. You can see that the European takes it further towards the north, but it causes some of this cool air to interact with this warm air, causes an intensification of the jet stream here, a little vortice max, and what we do see is that system develop, and you can see that drags up some of the moisture from the south, and it does so in a pretty profound way, developing yet another area of low pressure just off the coast. So again, a lot of moving pieces, right? Initial piece, second piece, the little jet stream trough, and then potentially this final piece right here, which is where a lot of models really start disagreeing. And you can see that the European does show a massive system quickly bringing a lot of rain. Again, not as much for the southeast according to the European with its big system. It's more northernly oriented, but you can see that it quickly, I mean, it's going to be bombing out, if you will. Look at that, 999 millibars, and within a few hours it's 991, 992, and it continues really rapidly intensifying. I don't know if it's going to exactly meet the qualifications of bombing out, but it definitely has something that we have to watch for, because this is typically the area of the United States where we could definitely see those, that going on. And you can see, again, a lot of rain initially, impactful, right? But after a while, we see that convert into very heavy snow for my southern Canadian folks. Toronto, you look to be just west of that. But Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec, and anyone that lives there, very heavy snow potentially out of a scenario like this. Notice tons of moisture, 970 millibars, so very strong winds, probably blizzard conditions back there. And the system, yeah, a lot of snow with it. And you can see the European really leaves this system as a wind machine by the time it leaves out. And funny enough, like I was saying, the models agree more on this system that's much further out than they do on this one that's not relatively far out. So, yeah, let's go back now and show you some of this total precipitation forecast amounts. I'll show you it just using the European, not only to save time, but I do believe the European just has a better handling on this system. So this is more plausible. In my opinion, of what could happen. And notice that we have several areas, Vermont, New Hampshire, in the 2 inches plus. So again, a very heavy rain event if this were to occur. But in addition, obviously, the very heavy snow events, not for coastal areas, but a bit further inland, especially across Canada. Some large metros here could be seeing well over a foot, if not more, along the inland portions of the Northeast as well. And again, even though the European is the most stable one, it's still probably going to change 1,000 times before the system actually comes through, because of, well, how complex the system is. So you can see, right, as I go back with these model runs a day now with the European, you can see it's been more consistent with its, I guess, heavy snow message here, while the GFS, even now when it shows that bigger system, it's a bit less snow oriented, and it's just also a bit more skittish. It just goes back and forth, back and forth. And again, another model that's doing surprisingly well and consistently, showing a system very comparable to the European in terms of its design of that storm, is a Canadian model. You can see there's that little piece of energy. It comes through, right? There's that little cool blast of air. So across, the Midwest, this will maybe produce some snow flurries, snow showers across Minnesota. So there could be some areas, depending on the intensity of this, that could see a white Thanksgiving across the northern plains. Doesn't look too significant though. And you can see the Canadian quickly starts garnishing up a lot of that moisture, and it does intensify very, very rapidly. Again, the Canadian keeping this system by far the strongest in terms of millibars. This would be obviously a very concerning system with, I mean, a wind machine to say the least, if this were to occur at the advertised strength. Look at those colorations also with all that heavy rain and whatnot. And eventually you can see the snow does explode, but more into southern Canada, not so much the US. And look at that, 955 millibars. That would be obviously a historic system, honestly, if it were to occur with that strength, which obviously leaves me with quite a bit of doubt. But total snowfall, you can see from the Canadian, not as significant as compared to potentially the total accumulated rainfall. And of course, just some of the wins with this thing, which would be, as honestly, it's probably not even worth showing them to you because it's most likely not going to be this powerful. But yeah, you can see some of those, especially right off the shore, approaching 50, 16 knots per hour, some miles per hour, even stronger. That would obviously cause some flooding, coastal flooding issues, and what's not, erosion issues. So that's definitely something we need to watch for. So that's a Canadian GFS European. Again, the differences are still pretty stark, pretty prevalent. But I would say that the confidence overall, since yesterday's video, that a system is going to be impacting the northern or just kind of the eastern kind of portion of the U.S. is slowly going up, and I don't really see, again, models like the GFS having a better handle on this compared to the European. And again, the European model is the one that's by far the most bullish with this thing in terms of snow, in terms of its precipitation rates, and, well, maybe not the winds as the Canadian beats it out, but it's still a very powerful storm at that time. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And again, the GFS, even if it's does show, its scenario does come true. A lot of its most recent model runs do show a massive system. It's just a little bit more on the rainy side. Still, I'm just going to call it a winter storm because it's going to have wintry impacts. I forecast for southern Canada as well here, so that's going to obviously lead some pretty heavy snowfall amounts. But, yeah, it's going to be mainly a rainmaker for the U.S. folks that watch me. But then again, the pattern looks restless, and you can see that there's another system that could be coming through. The GFS shows a major one potentially. The European and Canadian all show it as well, so quite a bit of agreement with this one. That would be kind of nice after such a nightmarish event to forecast like this one will be. And then you can see we have an enhanced blast of cool air that comes in afterwards. Probably gonna maybe see some sort of a southern system afterwards. It looks active. No shortage of that. So yeah, I just also wanted to quickly show you the snowfall amounts from the lake effect, the final ones, the finale, I guess. And the highest reported amount, again, there could be some amounts that are higher, just not reported, is 80 inches. I mean, that is incredible. That's hard to imagine. Yeah, I mean, 76, even a 20-inch, 30-inch event's big like that. But yeah, I mean, quite frankly, an event like the 80 inches, ridiculous. Yeah, incredible. So I can't even wrap my head around that. So yeah, obviously, if you're digging out, prayers are with you that you do that safely and whatnot, and nothing bad happens, as that is quite the amount to be dealing with. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya.